Good morning. I'll never forget it was a couple of years ago that I was asked to go and do a graveside service for a member of our family of faith. It was a wonderful member of our family of faith, and I was excited at the opportunity to get to do this. But when the time came and the day was going to be approaching, I started thinking about all that I had to do on my to-do list. It was a busy week at the church. There was a lot going on. I had so many things that were on my plate. And the real problem was that this graveside service was going to be a couple of hours away to go and do. It was going to be a very short service. I was going to end up having to drive several hours there and back for about a 10-minute service. As I started thinking about all that I had to do, I kept thinking maybe I could come up with a reason why I can't be there. Maybe this just isn't the right time, or maybe there's somebody else that could do it. And then I kept thinking about this member of our family of faith, and I knew that it was something that I wanted to do and something that I needed to do. Ultimately, it was something that the Holy Spirit was calling me to do. I ended up going and I made the drive. I set aside the time to do this. And I got to the cemetery, and when I was there, I met with the family, and we were going to be driving down to where the grave site was. As we were driving down, I'll never forget that there were some groundskeepers who were there working around the cemetery. And as they saw the family driving by, they stopped what they were doing and they took off their hats and they waited for the family to go by as they were paying their respects. We got down there, we did the graveside service, and as part of the service, they were going to be having military honors. This member was a member of the military, a veteran. The military came and they folded the flag, they presented the flag to the widow. It was an incredibly meaningful time. It was so special to see the way that they treated it with such respect, such care. They had somebody else who was there to play the bugle, to play taps. This person had also driven a couple of hours there and back to be a part of this just so that they could play taps for less than a minute. As I started thinking about all of these other people and how all of them had taken time out of their days, they had all been there for this special time. They were all treating the family with such incredible respect. It was such a meaningful time for me as well. I left there that day realizing that although I had gone thinking that it was the right thing to do and knowing that it was the right thing to do, I found that in the end, it was really my heart, my soul that was blessed from it. It was incredibly meaningful to me. Sometimes that's what happens whenever we follow the Holy Spirit. We go where the Spirit leads us, and sometimes it's not always what we would have chosen to do or what we would have liked to do, but in the end we find that it's incredibly meaningful to us. I'm reminded of the story of Paul, when Paul would travel and he would go where the Spirit was leading him. And if you read back in the book of Acts in chapter 16, you'll read the story there of Paul's vision of the man in Macedonia. It says there, they went through the region of Phrygia and Galatia, having been forbidden by the Holy Spirit to speak the word in Asia. When they had come opposite Mysia, they attempted to go into Bithynia, but the Spirit of Jesus did not allow them. So passing by Mysia, they went down to Troas. During the night, Paul had a vision. There stood a man of Macedonia pleading with him and saying, "Come over to Macedonia and help us." When he had seen the vision, we immediately tried to cross over to Macedonia, being convinced that God had called us to proclaim the good news to them. For Paul, going over to Macedonia, that wasn't necessarily what he had planned. It wasn't what he had intended to do. No, the story tells us he wanted to go to Asia. But the Holy Spirit, the Spirit of Christ, didn't allow him to go and speak the gospel message there. So instead, he went where the Holy Spirit was leading. Eventually, it would lead him to go to Lydia, and he would convert Lydia to the faith, and she would become an important leader in the early church. He would go on there to start churches in all different areas. And because Paul was willing to follow where the Holy Spirit was leading, not just where he wanted to go, it was amazing how God was able to use him to make a difference, blessing life in the early church. The same thing is true for us today. Sometimes the Holy Spirit leads us, maybe not always where we would have thought we wanted to go, where we would have planned to go, but the Spirit still leads us. And if we're willing to be open to it and to follow the Holy Spirit, sometimes we're going to be amazed to see the way that it blesses our lives as well. The ways that God is able to use us to make a difference for His kingdom here on earth. The ways that we might be able to have opportunities to spread the gospel message, to share God's love and bring hope. So today, If you're struggling knowing where to go next, what it is that you're supposed to do, simply stop and ask God to lead you. Open your heart and your mind to the Holy Spirit. You might just be surprised where it takes you, but you might also be finding that your life is going to be blessed by following. I hope you make today a great day.